Hi, good afternoon and welcome everybody to today's Cohesion webinar, The Hidden Secrets of Recruitment Process Auditing. My name is Lee Berman and I'm joined today by my colleague Debbie Evanson. Now, during the next 15 minutes, we're going to be sharing with you why auditing is important, when you should audit, who should be involved in the auditing process, the key elements of auditing, and what to tackle first. So I'm now going to hand over to Debs, who's going to talk to you about why auditing is important.
Thank you, Lee, and hi everybody. Okay, first of all then, we all know that finding, developing and retaining talented people in a fast-changing world is one of the key challenges facing HR leaders today. Organisations are having to face up to the fact that they need to start coming up with the answers to some complex questions. Things like, do we know what skills we need in 5 years' time? How can we be smarter at deploying our people and resources? And what does the new world of work mean to our people? Recruitment and selection is at the heart of many of these big questions. Get it right and organisations become leaner, agile and better equipped to compete for talent. By better understanding the recruitment model and ways of working, HR and talent acquisition leaders are better able to assess not only whether it's fit for purpose, but where the risk and impact might be. This could be financial risk, for instance at a tactical level, a dependence on agencies to attract the right people and associated high fees, or more broadly speaking, missed sales and revenue, where the wrong people are in the wrong role. There could be compliance or regulatory risk or operational risk due to poor use of resources and lack of efficiency. Or the organisation could find its competitors are moving faster than them, and they lose ground not only in the race for talent, but also in the marketplace. Finally, the way in which people find work has changed dramatically, and organisations have to adopt a customer service mentality when it comes to how they attract and select talent. Poor adoption will have a negative impact on candidate experience, and this is likely to make it even harder to attract and engage good people. So if we accept that effective recruitment and selection is key to an organisation's success, the next question we should look to answer is, when should I review the way we attract, engage and hire talent? Well, there are some warning signs that you as an HR or talent acquisition leader might look out for. Do you have a high dependency on agencies to recruit? Are we recruiting at least 80% of our candidates directly? Or are we using too much temporary resource in areas where we really shouldn't be? Are our hiring managers making sufficient noise around the difficulties they're having recruiting? And what do our applicants, successful or unsuccessful, have to say about their experience? Do they rate us positively on Glassdoor? Or are they dissatisfied and letting us know through social media? Do we have the people we need in the right role at the right time? Or are our teams creaking at the seams because it takes us too long to hire? What do our voluntary attrition levels look like compared to other organisations in our sector? And do we experience an unacceptable level of leavers within the first 12 months of them starting with our company? How do our new hires perform? Are they productive? Is the time it takes for them to become productive in line with our expectations? Is our business changing direction? Are we moving into new markets where we need to tap into new skills? The answers to all of these types of questions will make you better placed to decide if your recruitment model needs to be reviewed. So who should be involved in this? Well, let's assume that you've concluded that there's a case for review, and conducting a review in isolation is highly unlikely to give you the best picture of what is actually going on. Instead, you should take a broad view and engage with as many different types of stakeholders as you possibly can. Each will bring their own unique perspective and opinions, enabling you to gather first-hand evidence of what is going on and where you should be going. Our recommendations include talking to your finance team and capturing the financial data such as agency use and spend. Also talk to your hiring managers, either individually or in focus groups, making sure that you capture enough evidence from different parts of the business so that it is truly representative of your organisation. Survey your applicants, past and present, find out what works well and where the gaps are, asking them for ideas about how you can improve or where you can do better. Interview your strategic leadership team. Find out the direction of travel in each of their business areas, identifying areas of risk and the likely impact this will have if things don't go to plan. And also talk to your HR or resourcing team. What do they get frustrated with? Run through the processes, where are the bottlenecks, and which tools do they find least effective? Bring in trusted third parties, recruitment agencies, or your ATS provider, maybe advertising or branding partners, and ask them, how do you fare compared to other clients that they work with? What is it like to work with you, and how can you collaborate to produce better outcomes? So there's no hiding the fact that this can be an intensive exercise, and depending on the size and complexity of your business, it might feel a little overwhelming. But with all of the views of the above, how can you possibly get to the truth? Without knowing what is truly going on, you're unlikely to be in a position to successfully move forward. So the good news is that once you've gathered all of this evidence, you can start to map out just how effective you are. And our recruitment effectiveness matrix is going to help you with this next part of the process. So I'm going to hand you back now to Lee, who's going to talk you through the key elements of auditing.
Thanks, Debs. So, as Debs has mentioned, we've created this really simple and effective tool which has helped not only us, but also our clients to take all the evidence gathered and begin to rank their current position. So the 9 key elements are on the screen right now, and they cover recruitment expertise, strategy, technology, employer brand, sourcing and attraction, process management, assessment and selection, pre-employment and onboarding, and recruitment metrics and management information. Now you can download a copy of the Recruitment Effectiveness tool by using the link at the end of the webinar. And when you download this, what you'll find is that each element is graded by a red, amber, and green status. And within each status is a description. And then you use this description to determine which status is the closest match to your current position based on all the evidence that you've gathered. So let's use an example of recruitment expertise. As you can see here on the slide in front of you, we've got a description of each status, and you need to take a good hard look at all that evidence that you've gathered and just plot that current position and work through the matrix for each element. And what that'll do is, at the end, you can have a very clear snapshot of where you currently sit. You're going to be very likely to have some thoughts, ideas on those areas where you need to improve and what those solutions might actually look like. But before you get carried away, it's important to take a step back and really get to grips with what to tackle first. And we find that the easiest way to do this is through a better understanding of both risk and impact. So using that matrix, you've got your snapshot of where your current position is. You're going to start to build a picture of those gaps and the actions and recommendations needed to move the recruitment model forward. So again, using the example of recruitment expertise, in this example, you can see that we've graded the current effectiveness as red. And within that element, we've made a number of different recommendations. These will be different for you, but here we've suggested that you introduce a dedicated resource to manage the recruitment process for critical roles. We've also suggested using intelligence data on sourcing and attraction, plus some interview refresher training for hiring managers. This is just one element of the matrix, and if we assume that for each element you might have somewhere between 3 to 5 recommendations, it could be that there are upwards of 40 plus recommendations. So understanding what to tackle first is really key. Now, as I said, the best way of approaching this is to better understand risk and impact. And for each recommendation, you need to look at the impact of not implementing that action. So what is it that is likely to happen if you don't implement this recommendation? So here we've said that if we don't introduce a dedicated resource for managing the recruitment process, then the risk of that is likely to be that recruitment is going to remain largely devolved. Local practices are going to be favoured over a consistent and a centralised process. And then we use a risk and probability scale to measure how likely this is to occur. So looking at the slide in front of you, we've said here that if we don't take that recommended course of action, we think we're almost certain that this is likely to occur. And then we combine this with the impact scale to measure the consequences of not implementing this action. So again, using this example, we think there will be a major impact on recruitment outcomes. And using these two measurements, we then make a very simple calculation, which is 5 times 4, and that gives us 20. Now you need to work through each recommendation on this basis. You highlight the detail of not taking that action, and then use the risk probability scale to measure the likelihood of this happening, and finally, the impact scale to measure the scale of the consequences. Once you've completed this, you'll be able to easily identify which recommendations are the most pressing to tackle. So that concludes our webinar today. In summary, we've covered the importance of auditing, the benefits of auditing, the warning signs, and also the tools available to help you. Also included at the bottom is a link to where you can download the matrix. That's www.cohesionrecruitment.com/resources/recruitment_effectiveness_matrix. Thank you very much for listening.